Hey everyone, welcome back. Hey, so, got a couple questions for you. Do you have a shop full of tools? Plethora of power tools laying around your house? Well, if you've answered no to both of those things, have no fear, because today we're going to be making something that will only require hand tools. That's right, you heard me right. We are going to make something using only hand tools. So, let's go ahead and head inside and see what it is that we're going to be making today. All right, so today we're going to be building an interchangeable centerpiece for dining room or breakfast bar. You don't have to put the flowers and stuff in there, but you know, it's a nice little aesthetic. As you can see, it's just simple butt joints. Most basic woodworking project because it's a box. An interchangeable, centerpiece, right? Which is the most basic type of woodworking project you can do. It's a box. It's not even a box with fancy joints. It's all butt joints. So here's what we're going to be using today as part of this hand tool only project, right? So get our cuts. I'm using a nice handsaw. This is the DeWalt one. Had this thing for years. Hammer, pencil, speed square, tape measure, just a F-style clamp to kind of help out with some stuff, and then these Bessie 90-degree clamps for helping kind of just keep things square. And then we're going to be securing all of our joints together with either some bright wire nails. Finished nails would be better, but Menards didn't have any. And then some wood glue, which of course in my shop can't find my wood glue, but it's around here somewhere. So that's what we're gonna be using. So for this project, you're gonna need some 1x6s and some 1-inch dowels. Now, if you don't want to add the little legs onto the bottom, then you just need the 1x6s, right? The bottom part's completely optional. You don't need to have it if you don't want to. I think it adds another little design flair. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead, get our 1x6s all set up. I'll call out the measurements as we're going, and then we'll get to it. All right, let's get to building. All right, so we got our 1x6s and everything. So to start assembly for our cut list, we're gonna need 2 1x6s at 15 inches for the front and the back. Then our 2 sides will be 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and then the bottom piece will be a 5.5 by 13.5, and they'll all butt joint together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our tape measure, right? Simply measure out to 15 inches, make our mark, okay, right? And then we're gonna take our speed square, line it up with that mark, and then we're just gonna take our pencil and just kind of make that line go all the way from one side of the board to the other. Now, when we're using our handsaw, okay, the tendency is to just try to muscle through it as fast as you can. What that's gonna end up doing is getting the blade caught, you're gonna have sloppy cuts, it's not gonna cut well. If you see my YouTube short, which apparently was a touchy subject for some people, you wanna make sure that you go nice and smooth. So what I like to do is you can brace your board, you can kind of clamp it down here, you can just hold it with your hand, is we kind of create a nice little trench, right? Kind of just a little back and forth, just enough for the blade to grab onto. And then we're gonna go nice and smooth through the board, right? That's gonna help us keep a nice straight cut as we go through the line. Now, this is gonna take a while because power tools make things cleaner and faster. Hand tools can get the job done just as well, but they just take a little longer, so you gotta have some patience. So if you don't have patience, this is a great exercise for you to help develop some patience. But I know you're not patient to watch me cut through all these boards, so we're gonna go ahead and just fast forward through this next part, and we'll come back once I have all of the pieces cut, and then we'll talk through the assembly portion. All right, so just... And here we go, sawing away one piece at a time. I eventually use my brain and actually use a clamp to hold down the boards while I give it a good saw. I gotta check on the kids. In fact, actually it's a good project to bring the kids into because well, there's no power tools. It's all hand tools. So I mean, if they hurt themselves, it's really because they were doing something they weren't supposed to. But him here, contemplating the meaning of life, cutting away, saw, just over and over and over again until all of this is done. Here we go, in and out. I think it was actually this board here that I just threw away was because it had a big old knot in it. It ended up making the blade fluctuate. All right, now that we got all of that cut, go ahead and put this up for now. Over here somewhere. Okay, so the way this is gonna work, right? So we have our bottom piece, we have our two side pieces, okay? We have our front pieces, right? Just gonna go right here like this. And then our other front piece. Bing, bada, boom, we have a box, right? So what we're going to do before we do any of that is kind of show you why it is that the piece here, that the power tools generally work a little better. Okay, so I'll just bring this over here. So kind of an example here. So this was a piece that was cut using a miter saw, right? Nice, clean edges, smooth. And then this is what comes out of using a handsaw. You see all these little frills up here? This is what's called blowout. And it's kind of rough and everything like that. So that's kind of what happens when you use a handsaw versus a power tool, because of the speed that it's going through. It's making a nice clean cut, especially the way the blades are designed as compared to, a handsaw. It'll still work if that's all you have is a handsaw. Guess what? Still made a cut. All you gotta do is a little extra prep work. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and just sand everything down. Again, using a hand sander, right? So I have a little sanding mouse with my pad. So we're gonna go ahead and sand everything down before we start assembly. That way it's just one less thing we really have to worry about. So again, we'll kind of fast forward through that part, because with the hand sander, it takes a little longer than with a random orbital sander. So we'll kind of fast forward to this boring part again. All right, so another boring, tedious task is sanding here. A little tip: if you lightly color some pencil marks onto each side of the board, you'll be able to tell if you're actually sanding it all the way off. Plus, you'll see a color change. It'll actually get lighter as you've sanded it down. All right, so after contemplating multiple times through cutting these things and then hand sanding it with these little sanding mice, you can pick these things up on Amazon, like a pair of them for like 15 bucks. They're pretty cheap. We're gonna go ahead and start assembly. So you can do this a couple ways, right? So you can do side to the face, right? Again, these are all butt joints. So do side to the face, and then put on the other side, and then put on the bottom, and then finish up with the face. Or you can do the bottom and bottom, or the two sides and the bottom, right? You're just gonna mount them in there, just like so, right? And then put on your faces, because the face will cover the tops and the bottom sides. So there's really no right or wrong way to do this. It's however you want to do it. So if you have them, right, you just take your Bessie 90-degree clamps, stick them on here, get it all lined up with your 90 degrees, okay? Once they're on there, right, keep one side just slightly loose, that way you can take it out, and then you're gonna apply some wood glue along the butt joint, right? So right along here, just apply a nice even coat of glue, and then simply put the joints together, right? Form your butt joint. Re-secure it with your 90-degree clamps if you have them. If not, no worries. Just try to make sure it's as square as you can get it. If I could figure out how to loosen these things up, right? Talk about amateur hour here. doing this upside down is a little bit of a pain, right? So get it on there, get a nice 90 degree, secure it up. Then we get to do hammer time, right? So take our hammer, right? If we got it on there, you get finished nails are better if you're going to do it, but again, like I said at the beginning of this video, you can also use wire nails. We're going to be painting the main box itself, so nails just kind of become an aesthetic at that point, and aren't really going to show through as much. But let's go ahead and time lapse through this assembly, because again, it's kind of boring to just sit there and watch me hammering away, right, like a freaking woodpecker. So we'll get that all assembled, and then we will talk through the bottom part, right? Our little feet for this box. Again, if you don't want to put the feet on there, you don't have to. Completely optional. And then you just have yourself a nice box to stick maybe some cookbooks in. You can do the centerpiece decorations, whatever it may be. So let's go ahead and get this thing all tacked together, glued up, and assembled. And then we'll wipe it down and do all the finishing baloney. Again, you can finish it however you want to, so let's go ahead and do that.
Alright, so as you can see, I finally found my wood glue. We're just applying a nice even amount on each of the joints there, right? You want to make sure you have even coverage. This is probably going to be one of the funniest sections to watch, because you're actually going to see me struggle with hammering in nails, because it's been a minute since I've actually had to hammer in any nails, because I just use my brad nailer, and if I'm going to tack anything, which I try to avoid doing most of the time, well, you'll see me kind of struggle here to actually hit a nail correctly. Not much of a woodworker if I can't hit a nail in straight, but I generally try not to have nails in my pieces if I can avoid it. But, you know, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. The nails are just there to extra support while the glue finishes up drying. But yeah, so that's kind of what we do.
Alright, so it's the next day, right? And sunny, and we have completed our box, right? So if you're following along, these front and back pieces are, again, 15 inches. The side pieces here are 5.5 by 5.5, and then the bottom piece is a 1x6 cut at 13.5. And we just simply glued and tacked them all together with some finish nails. So yeah, so what we're going to do for that is we're going to clean it up. Now, the way that I like to clean up all the sanding and sawdust stuff is just with a clean rag and some mineral spirits, right? It helps actually make the grain pop. It gets more of the dust up for some reason better than water, because if you used water and wiped it down, you're going to have to re-sand it. But if you use mineral spirits, you don't have to do that. Now, if you don't want to add the legs or the little feet to it, right, then all you do, finish it or leave it unfinished, whatever you want to do. But you have created the interchangeable centerpiece. Now, how this becomes the interchangeable centerpiece is you buy one of those craft foam blocks, and then your fake flowers or fake plants or whatever, and you stab them in there. You can use real ones, just make sure you take all the precautions in terms of wrapping and the things that go in there if you want to use real plants, which is definitely possible. I see a couple other videos around YouTube that can do that. Now, if you want to install the feet, this process is going to also take a minute, because of how skinny these dowels are, right? The wooden square dowels. You're going to only want to use wood glue for these. You're not going to want to use even a finished nail. If you happen to have pin nails and want to risk your thumbs and your fingers, by all means go for it, but I kind of like my one-of-a-kind glue spreaders. So to do this is one of those things you're going to want to measure it now that it's done, right? Now that you have the box assembled, so you get the accurate measurements. So this is about 7 1/16 on both sides. So what we're going to do is we'll cut two things at 7 1/16 and just wood glue them on there, let them sit, and then we'll start cutting the other pieces. Now you can make these feet as simple or as complex as you want. It's really all up to you. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and do up my centerpiece, right? With how I'm gonna do it, which is kind of a weathered, modern farmhouse style box, right? So my box itself will be kind of this weathered white, and my feet will be this Varathane classic gray stain. So to not bore you to death with how that's gonna look as we watch paint dry, literally, I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll come back and I'll show you what mine looks like. And now what I wanna see is, if you've been following along, what you did with your box, or your interchangeable centerpiece. It's a box, it's a box, it's a box. So whatever you've done with your interchangeable centerpiece, post it in the comments below. I'd really like to see just how creative you got with these things. Also, make sure that you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And so, I'm gonna do up mine, and we'll come back and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. And again, leave yours in the comments. All right, so we weren't able to make it flat white because I'm a dummy and I left my paint out here when it was super cold, so the paint went bad. So, quick design change. We went ahead and just used a ebony stain from Varathane, and then just kept natural wood for the little feet here on the thing, right? So we're pretty much done with this project. If you've been following along, right, again, this has been just a simple butt joint project, right? We're making a box, and we only used hand tools. Now, again, you can use power tools to make this exact same thing. It'd just be faster and you'll have a little bit cleaner cuts. But other than that, look, we made something using only hand tools. Hopefully this helped you build some confidence in your woodworking abilities, and, you know, understanding that you don't need all of these fancy tools to be able to make something nice. So if you like this kind of content, make sure that you like and subscribe, and I'd love to see what variations you made to this, you know, really simple project. If you just drop them in the comments below, you know, maybe we'll feature you, do a video of just kind of highlighting what the community's done. So again, this is Yellow Jacket Woodworking, and I'll see you when we build our next project.